Okay, well, let's get started. Well, thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope everyone is having a great week so far. My name is Trisha Thomas. I'm a partner here at Fourlane, and this week I'm going to walk you through setup options and workflows for construction bidding and project budgets. So first I'm going to start and I'm going to talk about list setup options when it comes to your structure. That way you can get the most out of your reporting. I'm going to kind of walk through chart of accounts, structure, using that class feature. I want to show you guys customer job relationships that they have inside of QuickBooks, and of course our item setup for being able to track our project budgets. We're also going to walk through creating an estimate and using change orders. We're going to look at how that progress invoice featuring works. And of course, I'm also going to show you reporting throughout when we create these different types of transactions in the structure. So again, we're using that system to its maximum capacity to give you the information you need to make good decisions on your business. So let me open up my sample file. Let's go hop in there, take a look at that. Okay, so kind of starting at the chart of accounts. So I always like to start there because again, when you think about your chart of accounts, this is the structure of how you're going to use this file. This tells the transactions, where do I go? When I create this transaction, what GL account is affected? So in the construction industry, there's different ways you can structure the chart of accounts, and it's all going to depend on when you recognize revenue. So as you can see in this chart of accounts, this construction file, they purchase land. So they purchase land and develop it. For example, it might be into lots that they sell. And so you can see that they have land purchase, land interest, land development. They have construction of that land. So when they purchase this land, it's considered an asset to the business, and all expenses are maintained on the balance sheet until the land or lot is sold. When that land is sold, they'll then recognize the difference between their cost and the selling price as their revenue, and those balances get moved to the P&L. Other construction companies recognize income and expenses as they occur. So as that project is in progress and we're invoicing as we go, we're purchasing materials as we go, we recognize those expenses and income as we go. So as you can see, that breakdown of your chart of accounts is going to really drive how you report and how you look at your financials so that you can see what we have for assets, what we have for income, what we have for our expenses. So another feature inside of QuickBooks that will help you track different things at your P&L level is called our class feature. So this feature allows you to track at a profit and loss level different, for example, revenue streams of your business. Maybe you want to track different locations. So by making this feature active, I now can take transactions and I can actually assign them to classes so that I can see how I'm doing. In this example, I used remodel and new builds as two different divisions. And this way, we can see how we're doing in those divisions. So I want to show you guys an example. I've created a profit and loss by class. And as you can see, that you have those two different divisions, and we can see how we're doing in each division. So it breaks down my income by division, as well as my expenses by division, and I can see how we're doing at a gross profit and net income by those divisions. So again, this gives us more reporting opportunities that we can track so we can see how our construction business is doing. Okay, so kind of taking it down to the last thing I want to go over with you guys is our customer center and of course our items. So when you think about your customer center in construction industry, you're going to have customers, but underneath those customers, you're going to have projects or jobs. And inside of QuickBooks Desktop, what's really great is you can have multiple projects for one customer. So if you look at, I have for Trisha Thomas as my customer, there's one project called kitchen remodel. If we come down here to Albert Cruz, there are several different projects. So we have a kitchen remodel and we have a cottage new construction. So you can see that you can take your customers and you can divide each of those projects separately. And this allows you to not only track the budget per project, but it allows you to see what the profitability is on each one of those projects. So talking about the projects, talking about budgets, the item setup is very important when it comes to being able to track our job cost. So when you think of setting up an item inside of QuickBooks, we'll just use service items as a default. So the default is what we call single-sided items. And what this means is that I use this item in a customer invoice. So you can see that I only have an income account to choose from. But by selecting this button, this makes this item what we call double-sided. And so this tells our accounting database that I not only sell this item, but I also purchase this item. So use materials as an example. When I create my budget, I'm going to have materials listed on there because that's what I'm going to sell to my customer, but I also have to purchase those materials. So we want to make sure that that item is set up with a expense account for purchasing the materials, as well as the income account for selling the materials. Okay, so now that we've looked at different structure for your accounting file to get the most out of that reporting, let's actually go through the workflow and let's start at estimates, and then we'll look at our reporting, talk about change orders, and go through our progress invoicing. So coming on back to our home screen, the first thing we want to do is, of course, we want to make sure that our estimates are active. So to do that, we're going to go to Edit. We're going to go to Preferences. We're going to choose the Job and Estimates, and then we're going to choose the Company tab. And so we want to make sure right here where it says, do you create estimates? The answer is yes. And do you progress invoice? And the answer is yes. And what progress invoice means is that we are going to invoice for a percentage or a certain dollar of that project as we're going. So we're not going to just create an estimate and invoice in full. We're going to actually progress invoice. So invoice as we go. Okay, so let's get started. So coming through, we're going to start and we're going to select the estimate button. And so of course, first we're going to choose our job. If this is a new project or new job, you can create it new as you're inside the estimate. We don't have to go back to that customer center. But we're going to choose Trisha Thomas and her kitchen remodel. We want to choose our class because remember, we're tracking what our different divisions are. So we're going to choose it. This is our remodel class. And now right here, this template. So inside of QuickBooks, you can customize your templates based on, I could have a remodel template. I could have a new build template. And basically, when you think of customizing the templates, it's what do you want your customer to see when you email them this estimate? So I'm going to show you guys under list and under templates. Let's kind of talk about some customization. So I'm going to use the one that I had, the custom estimate. And so right now, what my customer is seeing is all they see is a description and what the revenue is. That's all I need them to see for this estimate or this bid. But inside of my accounting file, I need to see different information. So I make sure that I create the budget and I can see it in the manner I want it. So if we select the additional customization, you can see here that you have two columns. You have a screen and a print. So screen is what you're going to see in your accounting file, and print is what your customer is going to see. You can also see that you can change the name and change the order. So for example, quantity, we changed it to QTY, cost equals estimate. So you can customize this on what you want to see so that when you're creating these bids, you have the columns that you need to create everything you need to see. So let's come back to our estimate. And what I did for this one is I included the markup column because I want you guys to see that you can do a bid and you can create what your cost is, and then you can decide on a markup per item of what you want your customer to see that this quote is. So let's go ahead and let's create some items. I'm going to choose plans and I'm going to choose permits. Let's go ahead and let's say we need to do some demo work. And we're doing a kitchen remodel, so let's do some wall framing and let's do some doors and trim. So I want to go ahead, let me add some quantities here. And we're going to say demo work is going to be 5 hours. We need 4 wall framings, and we'll say we'll need 2 doors. Okay, so remember that I customize this estimate for what I want to see. So estimate equals cost. And so right now I'm creating, what am I estimating that it's going to cost me? So I'm going to estimate that my plans are going to cost me $100 each. My building permits are going to be $50 each. Demo, we're going to say it's going to cost me $125 an hour. Wall framing, we're going to say that that's $150. And then we're going to say doors and trim, we're going to say it's $450. Okay, so right here, my total, this is my total cost. Now what I want to do, again, this is what my customer is going to see, is what do I want to charge them? And I'm going to do a 25% markup. Okay, so I can use my copy paste feature, and I'm going to do 25% for every line item. So now what you see is I've created an estimate for my customer, and here's what their revenue is. So it did it per item and marked up 25%. So my subtotal is what my cost is. The markup is how much I marked up the total estimate, and what my customer sees is this total down here. So you can see I'm able to track my cost, estimated revenue inside there. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Okay, now I want to go ahead and let's look at my reporting. So the first thing I want to show you guys is my budget reporting. So I'm going to come to reports, to jobs, and this one I like to use is called job estimates versus actual detail. I can do summary and it's going to show me all my jobs, but for this one I want to show this, just the details of this job. So I'm going to choose that job. I'm going to choose OK. So now what you can see is this has all of those line items broken down per my budget. And then I've created what my estimated cost is per line item, as well as my estimated revenue. So this starts my budget process. I've created to see what I'm expecting it to cost me, what I'm expecting to make in revenue, and this is going to give me, again, that profitability on my job. Okay, so let's come back to our estimate. Now let's say that your customer accepted this bid and they say, oh, by the way, I actually want to add a little bit more. So I want to add some siding. I want to add a couple more things. Well, what we call for that is called a change order. So let's go ahead and walk through that change order. So let's go through and let's say they're going to add siding. And let's say we're going to do some window trim. Okay, so let's say that we're going to do 3 for a quantity of siding, and we'll just say 6 windows and trim. Again, I've got a cost here for my siding. We're going to say my windows cost me $175 a piece. And again, I'm going to mark it up 25%. Okay, so you can see it reflected down in my bottom. When I save this, what it's going to pop up, and it's going to say, this is what we consider a change order. Do you want this estimate marked with this change order? And again, this goes back to being able to track the differences throughout our project that we've done. So we're going to choose add. And now what's really great is you can see the date the change order was done, what items were added, as well as what costs were added. So it's a really great feature to be able to keep track of what's going on inside of our estimates as we go. So now let's go and let's buy materials. So we want to start incurring some cost on this project. And again, the key to being able to track at budget level is we have to take our materials and we have to assign that cost and link it back to that job. So I'm going to come back to the home screen. Now, depending on how you're ordering the materials will decide the type of transaction that you need to create inside of QuickBooks. So if you're calling and you're ordering materials, you might want to create a purchase order because we're saying we're ordering and we're going to get them later and we want to be able to track what we're ordering. But let's use the example that we went to a materials place such as Lowe's, Home Depot's, and we paid with a credit card and we purchased materials for a project. So let's walk through that example. So we're going to go to banking and we're going to go enter credit card charge. Okay, now from here, I can leave this blank. I don't have to enter the vendor, or I can actually set up a kind of a default vendor for materials. Instead of entering every different material vendor and building that file size, I can actually just create a vendor called material vendors. I can put down in the memo who my actual vendor was, but this will help us reduce that file size and not have to have every single vendor. For example, I've seen this a lot. We talk to clients that they will create a gas vendor for Shell, for Valero, and instead we can just create a fuel vendor and it captures all of our gas expenses. Okay, so let's come on down. Now this is the very, very most important point. When it comes to allocating cost to projects, you need to make sure that you're doing it at item level. So if you choose an expense GL, and we link this to one of our cost of goods sold direct expense accounts, what's going to happen is on our budget, it's just going to have a note item and a dollar amount. So we're not able to track line by line to make sure that we're staying in budget with what our estimated costs are. So we want to make sure we're choosing the items tab and we're choosing the items that we put on the actual estimate so that we can track our costs. So I'm going to come back to my estimate and I'm going to choose a couple of them. So I'm going to choose wall framing. Okay. And we've got a quantity of 4. Okay, and let's choose one more. So let's go ahead and do our siding and do 3. Okay, and we'll go ahead and do 3. But what I'm going to change for this is our dollar amount. So I'm going to say my siding, it actually cost us $500 for each. And we're going to say that we'll go for our wall framing and we'll do the $150. Okay. Now, I've entered the expense, but the key here is to link this expense to my project. I need to select my project. So I'm going to select my kitchen remodel. Now, if I went to the materials store and I purchased materials for multiple jobs, I can do that on one expense transaction. All I need to do is list out each material per job. So I could have the same siding again. And I can choose that and I can say, I also bought siding for this house new remodel. So you can have it on one expense. You just need to link it by the different jobs. And then I'm going to choose my classes since we're using that in our file. Okay. So once I save this, I want to take us back to our reporting. And now what we can see is we now have started actual cost. So you can see for my wall framing, I estimated 600 and I've spent 150 so far. On my siding, I estimated 1,350 and I've spent 1,500, so I'm over budget. So this allows me to make sure I'm staying in that estimated budget, or maybe I need to pull from another area. Maybe I don't need any more wall framing, so I have an extra $450 that I could use somewhere else. Okay, so let's go back and let's go through the progress invoicing and show you that. So coming back to my estimate, we're now ready to start doing some invoicing. So we've purchased some materials, we've started doing the kitchen remodel, and now we want to start invoicing for that. So when we select create invoice, it's going to pop up and it's going to give us some options. Okay. And so when we're looking at our options, we can either create an invoice for the total amount. We can create an invoice for a percentage of the entire estimate, or we can even select items and invoice for just those. So in this case, we're going to do a percentage, and I'm going to just say create invoice for percentage, and I'm going to use 10%. Once I hit OK, you're going to see that everything from that estimate came over into my invoice. So all of my line items, all of my estimate, and what you'll see as my total is what I'm invoicing at this time. So I'm invoicing 10% of each of these items, and it's going to create that amount for me for that 10%. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Okay, now I want to show you reporting that you have for tracking this progress invoicing. So under reports, under jobs, and we now have a report that is called progress invoicing versus estimates. So we looked at this report. What it's showing you is all of our in progress estimates, and it's showing you the estimate totals, and it's showing how much percentage in dollars have been invoiced for each project. So on our kitchen remodel, we've invoiced 10% so far. And then this project for Albert Cruz, nothing has been invoiced on the first estimate, and then 99% on the other estimate under that job. Okay, so kind of just looking at some different other reports. We've got a couple more minutes. I'm just gonna, before I turn it over for questions, I want to show you a couple more reports that a lot of my construction clients use. So under reports and under jobs, there's a report that's called Job Work in Progress Summary. So what this report shows you is what is the percentage completion for each of your in-progress projects. So you can see that it's giving you the same details as we keep seeing on our budget reports. So it's showing you estimated cost, actual cost, and then what the percent complete based on those actual cost for that estimate. And then it takes it and shows you that estimated revenue, the earned revenue, and then the actual revenue based on that estimated, that actual cost. Okay, so another report people use is reports and jobs, and then what we call the job profitability detail. So come back to show you the project. And so what this one is showing you is it takes away our estimated and it just focuses on our actuals. So what is our actual cost we've incurred so far in this project, and what is our actual revenue that we've incurred? And that way we can see what the difference is between those two. And the last report I'm going to show you is called let me show you this one under sales. And this one is called the profit and loss by job. So this one shows you at company level how each of your projects are doing. So you can see the job that we've been focusing on, Trisha's kitchen remodel, and this is showing you at that profit and loss level, how are we doing at income, at our expenses, and then that takes you down to what our net income is on this actual project. And you can see it lists all of your projects that you have going on, so you can see how you're doing. Okay, so I know I went over a lot with you guys today. Let's see if there's any questions before we end this session. And as you guys know, we're always open to reaching out to give more support. I would love to work with you guys on some workflows, anything needed to make sure that you can track your jobs and the cost to make sure that you are making a profit on your jobs. Okay, you guys. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it as always. Anything that I've shared, if you need more information, please reach out and we'll be glad to hop on and work with you.